Well, as I've said before, if there's anything I like about being part of certain fandoms is the creativity that fans have, especially when it comes to, continuing, a series where it left off and has never had a decisive conclusion in either shape or form that we could think of. And that can't be said any truer than the Archie Sonic fandom, mostly the Sonic the Hedgehog Archie comic books fandom, which is basically a very huge fandom. A lot of them have, followed Sonic comic book wise over to IDW and have enjoyed, his adventures there, despite being a little darker, a little weirder, a little bit more dramatic at times. They have enjoyed it, just as much, or starting to enjoy it just as much as they did with Archie. But speaking of Archie, as I believe I've mentioned before, and others have touched upon this, there have been a ton of fans grouped together individually, that have done their own interpretations, their own interpretations, of what the Archie Sonic book would have been like storyline wise before the reboot, before the soft reboot, if you will, as if basically the Worlds Collide crossover, the first Mega Man Sonic crossover, never happened. Now, some also, do stories based in the post-reboot era, that take place, or were supposed to take place, on schedule or originally as planned, after, I think, the Sonic origin story of how he and the Freedom Fighters came together, if you will. And that would have all started basically, not just in Sonic Universe, with each, issue being sort of a collab of characters, both game and comic SatAM-wise, teaming together, but it also would have started in the main book that would lead into it. So you'd have, like, for example, right after that main book that would lead into it, you'd have, issue 1 of the Freedom Fighters arc in Sonic Universe with Antoine and Sonic. Then you'd have the second one with Bunny and Blaze. And then the third one, I think, was going to be Amy and Sally, I believe. Maybe, and Cream, I think. And then the other one, I think, was going to be Rotor and Silver. I'm not really sure. But you're going to have a unique, mixture of team-ups to kind of, not only give us a better idea of, who the Freedom Fighters are, basically reintroduce them to, the longtime fans, as well as introduce them fully to the new fans, but also basically expand their characters, and their personalities, and show us, what else they're capable of doing. I mean, we kind of got a hint of that somewhat, let's say, in Spark of Life, when it's pretty much noted that Sally's not that good of a cook, which would have been her comedic quirk, if you will. And I could see maybe in that one issue, Amy probably being the better cook, and even Cream to an extent, teaching her how to cook properly. I could see that, as a bit of comic relief. But unfortunately, none of that happened because the book got canceled. Now, though, like I said, there have been groups of fans throughout the past several years since the book was canceled that have come together and essentially just decided to continue the story where it left off, pre-reboot and post-reboot. And, those are fans or groups of fans known as Archie Sonic Online, fans like Game Boy Sage, with their own unique interpretation, which they basically cross over Sly Cooper and Carmelita Fox from the Sly Cooper series into the mix. There's Glitcher, who basically does these individual issues or pages once in a while, which is more of a darker take on the Mecha Sally arc, which is pre-reboot, as well as some other arcs that are either post or pre-reboot. And believe me, for anybody that, was always in favor of the fact that Eggman had gutted Sally, basically taken her apart and rebuilt her when he weaponized her, and everything, Glitcher basically provides the visual aid that, Ian Flynn did not put in because he knows this is an all ages book and he would have gotten in trouble for that. So Glitcher basically filled that void. And then, of course, you have recently, to my surprise, you have Mobius Comics. You have Mobius Comics, which I think has one or two Sonic comics based in the Archie verse that are out right now, and are sort of like a hybrid of the post and pre-reboot continuities into one, which is really good. And now you have another one that just debuted this past weekend, or this past Saturday, I should say, or yesterday, that being this past Saturday, May 6th, called Archie Sonic Forever. And, what's unique about Archie Sonic Forever is, unlike the other, continuations of the Archie Sonic verse in some capacity, like what Archie Sonic Online's doing, both ways, what Game Boy Sage is doing, Glitcher's doing, Mobius Comics is doing. What Archie Sonic Forever is doing is kind of unique. And they actually have somebody artistically that did the cover, and I think some of the inside of the digital book that used to work on the comic. It's the official comic itself, and that's Jennifer Hernandez. Yes, Jennifer Hernandez at one point did do some artwork cover-wise and internally in some of the issues of the official Archie Sonic book, and I think she's even lended a hand, recently in the pages and covers of the IDW Sonic book. Now, getting back to Archie Sonic Forever, the difference, like I said, between it, not between it, but basically the difference when you compare it, that's the word I was looking for, to the other ones that I've mentioned, is it's actually more of a prelude series. That's right. It's more of a prelude series that basically takes each issue and basically focuses on different plot points, subplot points, if you will, in the issue that will interconnect, at some point. So, for example, they started off, with a free, well, I'm guessing all the issues are going to be free, but they decided to debut the first issue, which is issue 0, but it's also entitled issue 241.5, where essentially, they're focusing on a lot of things going on at that moment. Now, I don't know if they meant 247.5 or whatever, but if they're building up to the 247 part, then I can understand that, hey, 241.5 is, more sensible and, continuity-wise to start with. But what's interesting, like I said, about Archie Sonic Forever, the zeroth issue, if you will, the pilot issue, is, like I said, it gives you an idea of what they're what they're going to be working on when it comes to the book. Because you see, the first main story, is going to have focus on like 3 or 4 subplots that will interconnect later on in, the overall story. Well, the backup story will be basically a shorter version of a story that could have been, seen in the Sonic Universe series when it was, existing side by side with the main Archie Sonic book. So, what does the first issue contain, you might ask? Well, basically, what the first issue contains, ladies and gentlemen, is it basically, I guess you could say, picks up where 240 left off, because I think around the time of the original 241 release, that's when Sega decided to stick their nose, into the comics continuity business and basically cause the comics, ongoing story to come to a halt because they wanted to do some kind of, issue where they were showing the partnership with in support for the Olympics, the Summer Olympics or something, which was many months too late when it got released officially. But also, I think they were doing it to kind of try to have a tie-in with Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, which again was many months too late. But yeah, they decided that 241 would be that issue. I think that was around the time. So what they're doing here in Archie Sonic Forever is basically continuing where 241 would have left off, originally had nothing been interfered with. So what's going on here in the main story, the first main story? And the main story basically, like I said, focuses on a couple of plot points. That's what it focuses on. What it focuses on with Sonic, Amy, and Tails is they're heading to Marseille, which is the home of, in the Archie comics, Amy's cousin, Robbo the Hedge, and his wife, Maid Marian, or Maid Miriam. Not Maid Marian, but Maid Miriam, I believe. And basically, they get there, and, they start, coming together to figure out a plan to not only track down the Death Egg, because the last location it was, spotted at, stopping was Marseille. So, being in Marseille, they are basically in proximity, of it, and now they're coming up with an idea to how to not only attack it, but also get Sally back. Because one thing that they do address here, and I'm glad they addressed it here, was the fact that, in Sonic Universe, in one of the Sonic Universe stories, I think it was the one with Snively versus Eggman, basically, Monkey Kong notices that Sally is running on power rings. She is running on power rings in a weaponized form. So basically, what Archie Sonic Forever is doing in the story with Amy, Sonic, and Tails is letting us know that Monkey Kong got in contact with them and told them that Sally is running off power rings, and that basically, instead of giving her free will, they figured out that Eggman must have found a way to, isolate, that, from her. Basically insulate, the power rings from, giving her back her free will, or else she would have it. So essentially what the plan is, in this continuation of the original story, is for them to get onto the Death Egg, get to Sally, and find a way to break loose that insulation, that isolation that's around her, that's around the power ring, if you will, and enable her to get back her free will. Because as Tails puts it in the issue, if it wasn't for Eggman putting that, installing that in her when he weaponized her, she would be free. She'd be able to, be back on their side and stuff like that. We also get a little bit of a background with Amy as well. They talk about the fact that Amy misses her father, and that she wants to do what she can to, make him proud and everything. And she's just, in the mood right then and there to want to just, get to the Death Egg and start swinging away and all that. And it's Rob that has to kind of, let's not essentially calm her down, but kind of, you make her understand that, look, I understand you're impatient, you're eager, but we have this plan. But if we have a plan here, if not several on our side, then you know what? We're going to try to work with these to see what we can do. And basically he ensures her that, don't worry, you're going to make your father proud in the process. You're going to go on this mission, you're going to rescue your friend, and you're going to do it in a way that would make him proud. Now, that essentially ends the Sonic, Amy, and Tails portion of the main story. But then we focus on Rotor and Cream, and to an extent, Vanilla and the Tails doll. And Cream, is just helping Rotor out, giving him some lunch and everything, while he's basically trying to figure things out and everything, work on things. Mostly, I think his nano Iron Man suit, as people have called it. And Cream wonders if if he'll ever have a chance to help her find the Tails doll. And Rotor's like, basically Rotor tells her very kindly that, hey, as much as I want to help you do that, right now, with everything going on, Sally being weaponized, Nicole's banishment, because this is also at a time where Nicole was, in self-exile, because basically Nagus had essentially just corrupted and basically made Mina's song that she was trying to sing get misinterpreted into hatred towards Nicole. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, and, Rotor basically says, maybe we could look later, right now is not the best time, and Cream, somberly understands that, and walks away, on all that, thanking him for his time and all that. Then we get to another little subplot as well, and that is with Mina Mongoose and her boyfriend / band manager, Ash Mongoose. And Mina basically wants to kind of delay her tour, for the time being, because she's scheduled to go on tour. She wants to delay it a little bit. And Ash, of course, is curious as to why. And her main thing is she wants to try to fix what her initial concert did by, doing another one, or at least a couple of concerts, right there in New Mobotropolis, to try to fix the damage that was done, and try to make amends for what happened. And Ash, surprisingly, is a little reluctant at first, but is understanding. Excuse me. He's a little reluctant at first, but is understanding. So what he does is he ends up basically rearranging her schedule so that it works in the favor of them staying in New Mobotropolis a little longer, and enabling them later on, after they get everything taken care of, or at least Mina does later on, to go on tour in a way that no one would reject Mina. No, Booker or anything would reject having Mina in concert, even if it's at a later date. So, yeah, that kind of helps out. And then you see Joffrey St. John, who at the time in the comic was being possessed by, his body was being possessed by, Nagus, and Jeffrey kind of like in spirit, kind of like, a ghostly figure or whatever, is telling, is being sarcastic with Nagus, and he's like, what? Don't like seeing a little love, being thrown around here, Nagus? And Nagus is not happy about that, not happy about hearing that. He tells Jeffrey not to speak to him unless he wants him to speak or whatever. And he calls him a spirit or whatever. And Jeffrey's like, oh, you're the one to talk and everything, since you're the one parading around in my body and everything, without my consent. Basically, Jeffrey's calling him out, saying, hey, you call me somebody that's a puppet and everything, and yet you're the one parading around in my body because your body is weak. And then we get, somewhat of what we saw beforehand in the comic. We see these other Exis spirits, or the spirits of these other Exis wizards that obviously fuse together to make Nagus, a reality, calling him out and everything, saying that maybe Nagus was a spirit that latched on to the fusion, a lost spirit that latched on to the fusion, and thus, was the result of such fusion, thus proving that maybe he's not as powerful as he seems to be, which of course angers him enough for him to shout out in public, silence. And everybody, is like looking at him like, what did that guy just say? What's going on with him? So anyway, that's the end of that. And then, we kind of close out the story with Cream finding the Tails doll. But it's also at this time that Cream is starting to kind of get a feeling that something is up. And she she grabs the Tails doll and walks back up to her mom and everything, Vanilla. And like I said, this is around the time where Cream starts to kind of get a suspicion that something is up, but she can't really, put her finger on it or anything like that. Anyway, that's the end of the main story. Oh, it does touch. Oh, yeah. One other plot point it does touch upon before I go is Eggman, Linda, and Eggman working on Mecha Sally, the weaponized Mecha Sally. And Linda is like, she's just, Linda has just had it up to here. She sees him working, on Mecha Sally and everything. And, and just like with Snively and all that, she's concerned about the fact that he's using up all the supply of power rings they have to, weaponize Mecha Sally as well as his other, weapons of destruction or whatever. And, Eggman basically almost lets it slip that, because this is at a time when Eggman disposed of Snively, but then replaced him with a robotic duplicate to kind of keep the Iron Queen off guard, because now the Iron Queen's a sub-boss, under his regime, in favor of being, not, I guess, imprisoned again. And the Iron Queen doesn't know that the Snively that's with her is not the real deal. Anyway, he almost lets it slip of what he did to Snively and everything, but then he just ignores it, shoves it off, because he notices, what Linda is trying to say and talk about, she's being serious. But then he just, like I said, shoves it off, shrugs it off, and says, "Oh, why don't you go file some paperwork and and all that, And Linda, in her thoughts, as she's walking away, Linda in her thoughts are like, she's just finally realizing, oh my God, this guy is cracked. He is fried. He is overdone. He is out to lunch, if you will. And then she comes to the conclusion that the only possible way she can get out of there, is Dimitri. Is her great grandfather Dimitri. And what's interesting again is this is another one of the, I think, 3 or 4 plot lines I was talking about. This thing is the 4th one because it connects with Knuckles and Dimitri. And what happens after she realizes she's going to need Dimitri to get her out, she sends codes, Dark Legion codes, that only he would know. And, Dimitri, gets these codes. He tells Knuckles is, sleeping on a chair or something. And he tells Knuckles, hey, wake up. I got some good news and bad news. He says, I got the good, he basically says the good news is, I got, a coronation or something. Basically tells him, I think, about the codes and everything that he's got. But the bad news is it comes from Linda, which Knuckles is not in favor of. And he's like, well, how can we trust him? What makes you think we could trust her, with her being the one sending these codes? And Dimitri lets him know, hey, these codes she's sending me, these codes are legit. They are the real deal. And basically not to worry, since he's taking precautions just in case this might be a trap. So in other words, Dimitri not only is letting Knuckles know, hey, Linda is basically asking for our help, is SOSing us for our help. But just in case, she might also be using this as a way to trap us, I've got a precaution. I've got, a backup plan kind of deal. So that's essentially the end. Like I said, overall, now that I've added that in there, that's essentially the end to the 4 major stories in the main book, the main story. Basically, that's the end of the 4 main arcs, or sub-arcs, setup arcs, if you will, in the main story. But then we get the backup story, which again, as they've alluded to, basically is more along the lines of more along the lines, um, of a, how do I put this? It's more along the lines of what Sonic Universe would have been like, had it had this story. Basically, this would have been the story in Sonic Universe extended, a bit longer. And it focuses on Nicole and Uncle Chuck. And basically, Uncle Chuck is working on something to kind of, help in the process of trying to reclaim the kingdom, as well as trying to get Sally back and also find Bunny and all that. And Nicole, she just feels still a little kind of disheartened over everything that's happened and all that. And it takes Uncle Chuck basically to cheer her up and even call her a young lady, and everything. But also, he also calls her a person, which surprises Nicole. She's like, wait a minute, you just called me and Uncle Chuck basically tells her, hey, did I mix my words? You heard what I said. He basically comforts her. He lets her know that, hey, I've made my mistakes too, and I've owned up to them. Or I've had people make me do things that I didn't mean to do, and all that, and I've made up for it. And basically he's there as a parental figure for her, basically, like I said, comforting her and making her feel better, and saying that he could use a young lady, a person like her, to help him out. And with the plans he's working on, to not only track down Sally, get the kingdom back, but also also find Bunny Rabbit, since that's going to be the next backup story, if not the next main story in Archie Sonic Forever #1. But overall, outside of that, I did like this. What they included in this 0th issue, this free comic day issue, which again, I'm pretty sure the entire series is going to be free anyway, just like Archie Sonic Online. But what they also included was like little data files like they used to in the official books, what they kind of did in the encyclopedia, which I do have. They added like little data files of everybody that's involved in the book and everything, the roles, like this, the roles of the character, the status currently in the continuity, stuff like that. And pretty much that's the end of the 0th issue, the pilot issue, if you will, of Archie Sonic Forever. And like I said, I have to give them a lot of credit, because what they're planning to do here, is basically focus on the stories that are in between, basically the little sub arcs here and there. So like with the main book, or the main story, I should say, in the issue, you're going to get maybe 3 or 4, main sub arcs that are going to interconnect together. And then the backup story is going to be a story that initially would have been in, let's say, Sonic Universe, but it's been shortened and broken down to something a little smaller to basically get to the point. And that's the main thing about Archie Sonic Forever. That's the main goal, as to why they are gonna use the main story, to focus on several sub arcs and all that will interconnect. They want to basically get it done quicker. They want to basically get to the point, get to the main points, if you will, so that they can get the story done quicker and move on to other stories. I mean, they even said it in the thing. They said, our plan, the goal basically is to focus on, focus on these smaller interconnecting sub arcs that are going to come together, down very soon, and not do it in a way where it just drags on for a long, long time. And I think when they mentioned, that when they mentioned that by saying, hey, we plan to do it, in a way that gets to the point, and everything is interconnecting, that, and it's not being dragged out. I think that might have been a little bit of a shot taken at Ian Flynn for dragging out the Mecha Sally arc for a lot longer than he should have. But overall, I think it's a great start. I'm definitely going to keep paying attention to this. I do, I'm not I do, but I did subscribe, basically, follow the Twitter page. I did, like I said, read the issue on the website, and I'm going to keep tabs on this because I want to see more. I want to see more because, like I said at the beginning, I like the fact that we have fans even years later, if not a decade later. Because think about this. Think about this. What Archie Sonic Forever is doing is essentially continuing a story that, originally got cliffhangered, if you will, and not given a full completion, if you will, a full overarching completion because of what happened behind the scenes. What they're doing about a little over a decade later is they're basically trying to finish that story out, but doing it in a way that would have been more efficient, more quicker, and more, get to the point kind of deal instead of dragging it on. Which again, I still kind of get a laugh at because I think when they kind of bring that up, it's kind of a shot being taken at Ian Flynn, like them saying, yeah, Ian, see what we're doing? This is what you could have done, and you could have got the story done a lot quicker. So yeah, I think it's just a little bit of a funny, non-harmless jab they're taking at Ian, with this. But overall, like I said, I like what I'm seeing. I really do. Because what they're doing essentially is not only focusing on all the characters, all the parties involved that are going to connect and intertwine in some capacity very soon, if not identical to the original finale. But they're also touching upon things that obviously were not touched upon in the original issue or the original story. Like I said, Tails bringing up the fact that Monkey Khan let him know, hey, Mecha Sally in her weaponized mecha form is being powered by power rings. And instead of giving her free will, Eggman has somehow insulated her from that. So I like the fact that part of the plan for them, when they infiltrate, the Death Egg, is to basically undo what Eggman did so that even though Sally would still be weaponized and roboticized, she'd be back on their side. So I like the fact that they're addressing that because that is something that was not addressed originally, and I appreciate that. I really do. I really appreciate that. I appreciate it, in a big, big way because, again, that has always been an issue with me. It's like, how in the world could Eggman use a power ring to power Sally and modify her or it in a way where she can't get a free will from it? How is that possible? And here they're addressing that, so I am thankful that they are doing that. I'm thankful they are doing what Ian Flynn should have done. I think that's why I get a kick out of them taking that little jab of, hey, we're not going to drag it out like a certain, original storyteller did. So I like that. I also like the fact that they're including the Maasai freedom fighters, Rob and Maid Mariam, Maid Mariam. Maid Mariam. Not Maid Marian, but Maid Mariam. I like the fact that they're including them and all that. I like the fact that, you have Uncle Chuck being the one that's accompanying her before obviously she makes up with Mina and all that, although you do the own interpretation of Mina making up for what she's done to Nicole and everything. So I like that. I really do. I really appreciate that. And I love the fact that they have Linda finally realizing that she made a big mistake joining up with Eggman because, from her own thoughts, she's realizing Eggman's still crazy. That basically, from her own personal point of view, Eggman has not fully recovered from his bout of insanity. If anything, he's even crazier. Because he is so determined to rule the world and all that, as well as get rid of Sonic, that he's basically willing to sacrifice all their power rings that they have just to make it happen, not realizing the consequences. So I like the fact that you have Linda, of all characters, that's always been known as a manipulator, and only would side with someone like, let's say, Knuckles or Sonic, for her own benefit. I like the fact that she's waking up and realizing, hey, maybe my great-grandfather was right. Maybe I do need him. Maybe I do need his help. So I like that, and I like the fact that Dimitri's letting Knuckles know, hey, the code she's sending us is legit. The code for help and everything she's sending us is legit, but don't worry, I know her very well, that I've got precautions set up just in case she does try to use us and stab us in the back and stuff. So I like that. I like the fact that this is addressing things that never got addressed fully, and they're doing it in a way that's not only quick and efficient, but makes sense from a continuity standpoint. I love that. I love that. So, yeah, overall, I do recommend checking this out. I think you will fully agree with me when you see what I'm talking about, by how, even though the smaller and everything, but, smaller and quicker, but, everything, that they are efficient and they do make sense in the grand scheme of things, and that they're also at the same time, they're addressing things that weren't addressed originally. So I appreciate that. I respect that and everything. And that's all I can really say, guys. But let me know if you've read Archie Sonic Forever, the 0th issue, the pilot issue. Let me know down below in the comments, as well as in the live chat during the premiere. Like the video. Also, support me at the various locations in the description that you could click on. It'd be greatly appreciated, guys, in this time of change, of me trying to get into another job and stuff and everything. Go ahead and click on all those areas. It'd be greatly appreciative if you can help me there financially. Even the smallest of donations would help out in a big, big way. But guys, overall though, let me know what your thoughts are. If you've read Archie Sonic Forever 0, how do you feel about it and the direction they're going with it? Let me know in the comments as well as in the live chat. And until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what you have to say on this, because I'm pretty sure you'll be in agreement with me that even though the subplots and everything a little shorter and everything, a little shorter and to the point, that at least they make sense, and at least at the same time they're addressing things that should have been addressed before. But overall though, guys, let me know what your thoughts are, and I am out.